Welcome. You have just entered Movie Fun with Imperial. Now today we're not going to review a movie. We're going to review the newly released YouTube Red original series, Cobra Kai. So a lot of the younger generation wouldn't know what Cobra Kai is, but anyone that's an 80s baby and before, or if you just was in the movies growing up, you know Cobra Kai originates from the movie series Karate Kid. And Karate Kid dates back to 1984. Then there was a Karate Kid 2 that came out about 86. Then about 89, Karate Kid 3 came out. And then there was like a next Karate Kid. It was a part 4, but probably like starting over. But it was like with the same Mr. Miyagi, but it was with a female. So Karate Kid, starting back in the 80s, was basically about a film about a single mom with her son. They came from Jersey. They moved across country to start a new life, and being a new guy in the town, new kid in the town, you know, he had no friends and trying to fit in, and he ran into the Cobra Kai family that went to his school, and the girl that he liked messed with one of the dudes from the Cobra Kai group, and a whole bunch of different change of events took place, and he eventually he was getting picked on in school. He got beat up a few times, and then the janitor of the maintenance of the building he lived in seen him getting beat up by the Cobra Kai guys, and he stepped in and fought him off. And the janitor, he watched the janitor beat the guys up, and then janitor brought him in the house, of course, and then from there they started to develop a relationship. And then he went to him asking him to train him how to fight. And at first he was standoffish. He wasn't willing to do it, and till he went to the Cobra Kai gym, and he went to approach their sensei to let him know that what they were doing, they were terrorizing him. And he got to see that the sensei at the time was a complete dick. So that triggered him from there, saying that he was going to train him. And in his training, what was unique about this movie, us growing up watching this movie, is that he had him doing like cleaning up this shop that he had, and while he was cleaning up the shop, he didn't know the whole time he was developing his technique or learning the karate or whatever. So he finally got fed up and said, "Hey man, I'm tired of doing your work for you or whatever." And after that, he showed him that he was training him the whole time with the repetition, the movement. That's why he wanted him to do a certain way while he was doing that. So the original Karate Kid was a real good movie. So Part 2 was okay. They went on vacation. Well, the big thing. Let me run that back. The big thing ended up happening in the original Karate Kid is that they went. They fought in the tournament of the Valley, and it was just Mr. Miyagi who was training Daniel LaRusso, and he called him Daniel's son, and they entered in the tournament, and Daniel's son made it to the end, and big moment. Daniel's son injured his shoulder. Mr. Miyagi came in, clapped his hand, and he did something to tweak his shoulder so he could still continue to fight. And then was this, I think they call it a swan kick, a special kick that no one didn't see at the time, and that kick won him the tournament or whatever. And so after the tournament, the asshole's sensei, he was mad at his guys, and he was beating his guy up, and his name was Johnny, and he was beating him up, and Mr. Miyagi came out and approached him, and the dude tried to fight Mr. Miyagi, and Mr. Miyagi moved, and the dude broke his hands, punching through the glass. Then part 2 came. They did a vacation back in Mr. Miyagi's home. I think it was Tokyo, something like that. And he at that point, he showed Daniel's son a new technique, how to fight, because the technique, that little BS karate he knew back home, wasn't going to work over here because they way more advanced. So he showed him a new technique, and that technique ended up winning. And then part 3 was like, they were stretching it with part 3 with that. And the next Karate Kid with the girl, that was cool, I guess. It was a cool film, but it didn't do much. Then it was a remake with Jaden Smith, son of Will Smith, and Jackie Chan. So it was a remake of the original, but it took place, I think, in another country. It was like China or whatever. So the remake was okay. It was pretty cool. Jaden Smith, that was one of his earlier films when he was younger. So that brings us to now. Cobra Kai. So when I first heard about this, it was like, wow, they coming out with a movie. And then I dug a little deeper, found out it's a series on YouTube Red. And I said, well, let me give it a shot and let me see the concept of what they did. So the previews had already showed kind of what was taking place. So, of course, they brought back Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. And I think the main producer on the show is like Josh Held, I think. And surprisingly, Will Smith is an executive producer with this series. I think he might be a silent executive producer, but I didn't see him out promoting it like that, so I think he might be a silent executive producer. So YouTube Red is like they're trying to make their way, just like you got Netflix originals, you have Amazon originals, you have Hulu originals. Everybody who's starting to get in this world of streaming, they are started. So Cobra Kai takes place in modern day, and it starts with Johnny pretty much has been Johnny is the main character that I spoke about from the original Karate Kid from part 1. He's the main character who Daniel was fighting in throughout the whole movie, and he's the main character that Daniel fought in the last big tournament. So since that time frame, since that time frame, he has fell on hard times. Pretty much, he's an alcoholic. He don't got his life in shambles. He got a son out there with no relationship with his son. So from there, on the opposite side, you got Danny LaRusso, who has blossomed into a successful LaRusso is a successful businessman in the town, and he has a car dealership that's very successful, and he's living a life. He got a family, nice house and everything, and so he's living the opposite of Johnny. So if you think back to the original Karate Kid, the original part 1, LaRusso was with his mom, who was a struggling single parent, who from there they wasn't financially good. And Johnny, he was at the time looked like a spoiled kid, always had it. He had a nice car, Trans Am car back in the day. So now you fast forward to present day, roles have flipped. However, Johnny still has that old classic car that he was driving in back in the 80s. So he has that type of car in the present day, but he's a drunk. So it starts off with him, the roles has switched where he runs into a kid that's getting beat up by a few guys, and he pretty much is mistaken for like a hobo, but he pretty much steps in and fights off the kids, and that kid lives in his apartment building and asks him to basically train him to fight or whatever. So come to find out the whole time, reason why Johnny and his looked like he was rich back in the day. His mom married a rich man, which was his stepfather, who had money, and that's why he had. And so what took place is, now the stepfather told the mom he will always look out after Johnny. So he pretty much is at his wit's end with Johnny, doesn't really want to have nothing to do with him. And he said he showed up to Johnny's apartment basically telling him he's gonna he tired of bailing him out, and he just pretty much want to do away with dealing with him. So he wrote him like a final check or whatever. So in the process of that, a change of events is happening. So they really developed. They got a good script. I was interested to see how they would write this script for this series, and they did a good job with writing the script, bringing in a whole new cast of kids. It's tackling the issues of cyberbullying, kids getting bullied in school, kids that look different than you in school, kids that's not quote unquote part of the cool squad. They're getting picked on. So it touched based on a lot of that. It shows how you could go through hardship and then you still can change. You still can change your life. Rest in peace to Mr. Miyagi. Of course, he passed in real life, so quite naturally they had to show that he passed on the show, on the series. So real life, the actor who played Mr. Miyagi is Pat Morita or something like that. So he played in a few movies, but he's uh, mostly known for playing Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid movies. So, I mean, the plot of Cobra Kai was good. I binged the whole show series. I mean, the series, and I definitely liked it. I like how they did and how they ended it. The asshole sensei that I told you about in Karate Kid 1, that same sensei showed up in Karate Kid 3 too. But him, they thought he was rumored to be dead or whatever, but he ended up showing up at the end of Cobra Kai. So that's like kind of alluding to a part like season 2. Also, instead of Daniel, like they making a twist where you, like in the original Karate Kid, it was only one person. Daniel was the only person part of that dojo, and so now what they're going to do is Daniel LaRusso, he's going to open up so he can have his own group of karate children underneath him, so it's not just one person. So it was pretty good. Johnny, his son, was bitter. It was so many twists in there where Johnny was kind of like bitter, holding bitterness from way back, but he was trying to change. He's a better person, sort of, but he's kind of teaching some of the old ways, and it's like a mixture of the two. Then his main person, who he was training, he was giving him good advice, but then bad advice at the same time. Then his son, he was bitter because he didn't have a relationship with Johnny, so he knew that Johnny always was bitter towards Daniel, so he befriended Daniel to work for Daniel at his car dealership, befriended him, start learning karate. Daniel start teaching. Daniel also has a daughter he taught karate to when she was growing up. Of course, she grew out of it and didn't want to do it no more. So he been longing to have somebody to train with again. So him linking up with that kid, which is actually Johnny's son, that, you know, he start training them, teaching them. So that's a twist right there. So I like the twist, and you gotta follow it. It's real good. It draw me in, and to rate this series, I can't really point out to come from an 80s series of movies to come in present day, and now to make it a series, I think the whole name of calling it Cobra Kai, that was dope. That just sets the tone from the gate. I think that was dope. So what I would say, in my 4 out of 4 ratings, I'm gonna give it 4 out of 4 stars. I can't think of anything that was wrong that they could have did better. They really took their time, got some good writers, and it was created well, and it's gonna leave anyone. You can, and I like how they did like flashbacks, so they kind of went back to like the old moments of Karate Kid 1 to show you where these thoughts come from, what was the build up to certain points, and where did they come from. So that was phenomenal how they did that. So I want to say that 4 out of 4 stars. I'll be looking forward to season 2. Till the next time.